What's up, Zax fam? We're back with some more Godforge. Now, we're going to be getting into everything. This is the first alpha, so this has been my first time where I've really been able to get my hands onto the game. And I actually made the conscious decision not to stream the last couple of days because I really wanted to dive in, focus, and really learn the systems and the base foundation of the game that was set so that I could deliver this in a video for you guys. So for all you guys that are like either anticipating or wanting to know more information, I could truly give you guys that. Now, of course, I want to actually dive into battle so I can show you guys where my current team is right now. Dude, my team is busted. I gotta say. And one of the things that I found to be really exciting about how this game is set up is that they allow you to have so much creative power in this game. And I'm going to explain that to you guys. Like, I didn't think it was going to be as vast as it is, but I'm telling you, it is absolutely insane. And one of the things that they really are doing is they're really making and they're playing into how you do decision making the right way. I'm telling you guys, like, this team really does have it together. And no, this ain't sponsored. What is what you guys doing that all the time, by the way? Like, this is not a sponsored video. So, like, they really do have like a vision and clearly understand what they're doing, right? So with my current team layout right now, right, I'm using like, and that's one of the cool things with the game is like you can like on demand, like use your ults, stuff like that, when it's your given turns. And then of course, on top of that, you can still use your character skills. And then what makes it even more impactful is the combinations, right? Like right now I'm going for like this kind of shield ulting team. And what I'm kind of playing into with like my Scotty, which is the third unit here, she has the ability to freeze. So I'm just kind of playing into tanking down, DPS nuking, ulting, and then making them not get turns, right? And it's been like the funnest thing because a lot of these stages do get like really, really rough, but I figured, well, why would I deal with that if I can just slow them down so I can get my turns quicker and then also make it to where they're not able to hit me. Now, by the way, that hit you just seen was from Heimdall and he's a tank. So yeah, that I will say, well, it's just so ridiculous. And okay, of course, right, there's definitely going to be some balances and things that we'll see going into the official release. But yeah, there's so much going on in my team. I got, you know, dots going off, I got shielding, I got all this stuff, and it's just super, super cool, right? Now, the other thing that I really actually like too is that these are things that are just the standard norm that you want to have. Like you can see your battle statistics at the end of the fight. You can also see them, and I forgot to show it, but check them in the midst of the fight as well. So there's just so much that kind of like is layered already in the game, even though that this is the base foundation. Now we're gonna actually go over to our heroes, and I want to again shout out to Chosen and the Fateless team for inviting me back for another podcast. I'm not going to go too in depth because there was definitely a lot that we did talk about, but I do want to talk about some of the key factors or key points that were made that they answered directly. And I feel like one of the like best things about a company having a vision is when they're 100% transparent about who their audience is, what they want the game to be, and what they are intending for it to be, right? And so what they basically have clarified, because one of my big questions was, you know, what exactly is the goal? Like, you know, like, are you trying to like what are you trying to get players to do when they're playing? And one of the things that they definitely clearly stated was that what they're really trying to push for, especially at this point in the development phase, is giving players the ability to make decisions, right? So they definitely want players to make decisions with a lot of the different systems that exist within the game. But also with that, they're trying to also make it to where you can build basically around things or into things that you want. And so you're still able to clear content, but it doesn't have to be the exact same team or the exact same strategy that someone else used. And that's going to be the fun in the game. Now, I know as far as unit accessibility, it's going to be random. It's going to be RNG. I don't think they plan on handing out these super specific characters to everybody. I think what they're going to do, though, is make it to where it is accessible to where whatever you have and whatever you end up liking, you'll be able to actually clear content with that. And I think that that also is a big telltale, because for me, the biggest thing is that if I get something random, but it's not usable, like that also kind of like can put a damper on an experience. But if there's a ton of viable options, then I think that that's going to make it more creative. And I actually would think it opens up the idea of having more units in the game. And they even has stated that like by the time the release happens, they're gonna have, like, I'm assuming double to maybe even triple the amount of units that are already in the game. Is like 67. So that I think is just going to definitely give way more variety for people to be able to team build, right? Now, with that, I want to dive into the actual kits, right? And kind of talk about a couple of the different mechanics as far as supporting reasons why I think that this is actually a system that's going to work extremely well for them. Well, number one, right? If we go over to our upgrade, you have the ability to promote, right? Now, this character is already maxed. So let's actually go to another character real quick. So let's go to my Ramses real quick, right? So with this system and how they have it set up, you can basically level, and you can also ascend your character or promote your character at the same time, right? Now the thing is that the rarities are based off of the value of the character, and so you'll get souls, which is like a universal currency. Compare it to like Shadow Prince, for example, where you'll be able to actually use that. Like if a unit is either at 5-star or if they're a legendary, they can basically be used as food to take that character, say from rank 5 to rank 6, right? And then respectively so in the reciprocal lower tiers, right? So that's basically the promotion system. I think they're going to have some more features and functions in the future to make this cleaner and like simplify it more. But for what it's worth, it's really solid. Now the Ascension system is actually really cool as well. There's a separate resource here that you're able to collect, which is the Alchemy Stones, which at the 3rd awakening will unlock the passive for every single character that I've at least come across in the game. And then each corresponding passive, like moving forward, is just like, the Ascension will give you like stats, right? Like you can see it's like 2% attack. The 3rd passive will give you, the 3rd awakening will give you, or Ascension will give you a passive though, right? So you'll get stats also combined with a passive effect, right? Now, the other thing that I actually found to be really cool too is that when we go over to Awakening, this is going to be taking advantage of the dupe system. Now, there's a lot that kind of goes into this, right? So the thing is that there's 3 different resources that can be used. You can use a imprint of your character, which I'm gonna explain what imprints are. You can use a duplicate of a character, or you can use a universal imprint for that character, right? And each character falls into a certain faction and role, and there's going to be things that will reciprocate these 2 systems, right? So obviously duplicates, which is just another copy of the unit, and then of course it will be this imprint system, which is going to be unique imprints for characters, and then universal ones, right? Now, the thing is that what you're getting from the imprints is going to be stats and extension of abilities. I'm not necessarily mad at this, especially because there's so many different currencies that you can utilize to be able to dupe your unit. And so that's something that I feel like, you know, really does help even at the higher spectrum when you're talking about like my chances of pulling a certain legendary over again or again in general, versus like, you know, now you increase your odds by also having these other resources, especially the universal, to be able to get chances of duping your characters, which I think is just such a huge thing. And they'll probably have those structured in events and things of that nature, which I think is great, right? Now, of course, with that, we got to go over to the gear, and we're going to go back to Heimdall because this is the only way we can actually really showcase the other system. So obviously you have your weapons, right? And your weapons will take its own reciprocating resource, which is going to be the God Steel. And with a dupe of, with leveling with God Steel, it'll allow you to increase the stats of a weapon, but then also with duping or another copy of a weapon, you'll be able to dupe it essentially to get more value, right? So we can hit here, rank up, and it will increase that effect. So instead of 5% ignoring of the res, now it's 10%, right? So that's a pretty big deal, right? So we're gonna hit continue, and that's the refining system. Now, the imprint system, this is where things get a little bit interesting because as you notice here, the weapon has its own passive already. What the imprint system will allow you to do is it will allow you to take a passive from a character and you'll be able to apply that to your weapon. So you can literally take a passive from, like, say, for example, right here, we have a passive from let's find one from Ramses, right? So Ramses passive, so it deals 10% increased damage to enemies under acid, which is basically dot. So now I not only ignore 10% res, but if I imprint this, it also will allow me to deal 10% increased damage to enemies under acid. So this is something that is universal, and every character can take advantage of this. And imprints aren't class specific. They are imprints that can be utilized on any given character as long as they have a weapon, and so that's something that is like it's insanely vast for like the combination of being able to like what I would even say from what we're used to with like even the shells and like Ethereal Restart. This is even more of a step ahead because you can take something that you like from a whole nother character and take that value and add it to a weapon, which I think is just like super mind blowing. Like just actually being able to test it and play it, it feels really nice. So I actually did do this with one of my characters. I did it on one of the weapons. I think it might have been this one, where if I go to enhance here, I have increased damage at the first attack ability of each wave by 20%. But when we go to the imprint, I had imprinted it with the Ramses, so I deal 10% more damage to enemies under acid. And then with my Ramses, because his skill, right, if we go over to his abilities, it's his skill, I think it's this one. I think it's this one, right? So you have his basic, which can place acid, and then you also have his core ability, which also has an 80% chance to place acid in its AoE. And keep in mind, acid is a 5% max HP damage at the start of turn, and it's doubled on shields and barriers. And this is something that, again, I get to now with my Scotty, when she hits, I get to take more damage into those types of units, or into those units that are debuffed with that, while then still taking advantage of her freeze proc, her speed down, and making sure that people aren't able to even get their turns in the first place. She's just nuts, right? So I kind of worked that and made that a unique build. That's not something that innately would have been like either emphasized or shown, right? So really, really cool stuff that you can actually do. Now, the other thing is too, if we actually go back to gear, you have gear sets and gear bonuses. There are so many. I think I've scratched the surface on some. I haven't gone through all. I'll probably have a separate video just talking about some of the different effects that exist that I've been able to come across, but they've done some really, really cool stuff. Obviously, some of your like generic or standard set values like defense up 15% just for having a 2 bonus. Disruptor here is 2 bonus, which is an accuracy increase, but they also did something that I thought was actually quite unique with some set values, right? So they have like Raven, for example, and there's other sets that do this, where like Raven on a 2 bonus gives you accuracy of 1% on each turn at max 15 stacks. And so that means within 15 turns, you will basically be able to have 15% more accuracy, right? But when I first initially seen this, I was like, that's actually kind of bad, right? Because like, why would I equip that over the Disruptor set, right? When I can just give myself the raw 25 accuracy, right? And then when I actually started looking at it, I was like, wait a minute, there's a little bit of there's an arrow button here. And so when I pressed that, I then seen at a 4 bonus, it's 45 accuracy plus the initial 2 bonus, right? So this is going to have more benefit having it at a 4 bonus. And then to take it a step further, it even has a 6 bonus, which that was what was really like mind blowing when I actually seen it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's the value. So then on the 6 bonus for the Raven, it increases turn meter by 5% after placing a debuff. So with the specific type of team that I have, the Raven set is actually going to be pretty busted, because that's going to allow me to be able to take more advantage of debuff proccing, right? And basically that turn meter push, I might not necessarily need to have a character that can turn meter push when I can just build gear that allows me to get that, right? So it's really cool to actually see something like this, because like for what we have in things like Ethereal Restart, it's actually like, for example, we have the Strive, which is when I get hit, I get a 10% turn meter push, but we don't have anything like this where if I'm landing debuffs, that's going to give me a chance to turn meter push myself. And this could be great for things like PvE. And of course, this is to the individual character, but it does seem like you have a little bit more control in a situation like that, especially if they're a debuffer, right? Now, again, this does lock you out, obviously, of the other builds, because it is a 6 bonus. So it is going to be more expensive versus like a 2 bonus, right? And so you have other bonuses that are like this, like, for example, you have the Bear. which gives you 25% defense on the 4 bonus, but then on a 6 bonus grants a 15% chance to block and attack damage. And there's like so much more that kind of goes into this. There's so many different set values that you can like use. You have the duelist, which has the chance for you to taunt, and then of course heal 10% with attack. Like there's so many different set values. And like I said, I'm gonna have another video that's a little bit more specific to this, but it's so well done. I will say, like, I really do like the concepts of these sets. Because that even like makes it a lot more vast, even when you're thinking about like potential builds that you might see and the variation in builds that you might see in like things like PvP, which this game will have, right? So the other things, obviously, upgrading skills does require skill books. So that is a thing. It is randomized. And that's one of the things that is a little bit more traditional to what I've experienced in some games. I know some people prefer to have, them not be random. But I think that that's one of those things that they'll probably take more feedback on, and over time, maybe might change. It just kind of all depends, because that definitely is something that I know that a lot of casual players tend to think more about. Even some spinners definitely think about that too. But yeah, that's something that I feel like they'll address if they get enough feedback. So that's kind of my whole thing. Like if you're in the Fateless Discord, that's something that's I feel like worth noting or giving feedback on. And they'll definitely have an answer, if not already have given one, right? Now, I think outside of that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that we didn't go over. But yeah, that's basically all of the systems that I've been able to come across so far. Even just like when you look at like the gear and like the levels and stuff like that for substats, you do get more accessibility to substats as the rarity of the gear. There's also tiers to gear as well. So it could be legendary, but a tier 1, but then you can get a tier 3 legendary drop. So it's definitely like giving, a little bit of that RNG factor that I think is like cool for the dopamine when you get like a really, really good piece. But to be honest, like one thing that I have liked so far was that a lot of my units, like I got pieces now that are like the legendary pieces, but I was using a lot of green pieces for quite some time. Like that was definitely like the main source of my like progression push was like green and blue pieces, and we were rolling, right? And it really was just more so about my strategy and the synergy of the team that I built. But all in all and through, I really, really like the foundation of the game. I feel like as far as like longevity and future of the game, I feel like what they're going for is definitely more long form gameplay and keeping players having value, right? Like I think the thing that really stood out the most to me was how much investment you could get or choice, like decision making you could have with just the dupes, right? Like the imprint, the dupe of a character, and also the universal resource, because it's like you can use it for awakening, you can use it for imprinting, or you can use it to basically feed into another character or feed it into the character to raise their rarity. So you're gonna have to make conscious decisions and be smart in the decisions that you're making. But I think one of the things that's really nice is that they're being very upfront about that, and the idea of how you're going to go about building things in this game is very, very straightforward and transparent. And like I said, like this is not really going to give us too much information on the gacha itself, because characters have been dropping from here. I personally have only gotten 1 legendary, whereas others have gotten like 50. But that's just to each experience. The one thing I will say that has been nice is the fact that I haven't needed to have a legendary to be able to play, right? Like, I think that that's been the biggest thing, because for me, that was a concern, was like, if I need to have a legendary or legendaries to be able to progress, you kind of want to see what the value is of the lower rarities, and the value of the lower rarities are really, really insane. Now, the other thing is too, and I just want to kind of talk about this real quick, the systems that they have set in place, like you can actually force and extract things from your character. So they do have it to where it's not just drops, but you can actually use this extraction system on characters. So let's say, for example, I wanted my Heimdall's passive as a imprint, I can extract it if I have an extra copy. So it get like, that's what I mean by like how much like overall utility exists within the game. Accessibility, not utility, but accessibility within the game, where you can literally make dupes. Like, there's so many ways to make a dupe valuable, either increasing rarity, like I said, imprinting weapon, duping the character, extracting it so you can put it on another character. Like, there's so much that goes into this. It's really, really cool to see what they already got laid out. And then, of course, like I said, like it's just one of those things where I'm actually really excited to see what the next alpha is going to look like after they take feedback and they polish it. But all in all, through and through, my thoughts and opinions on the game, I think it's really, really well done. I think it's solid for this to be an alpha especially. So I definitely would say kudos to the development team on just this initial impression. I think for me personally, it leaves a really, really good impression. I think players going into the last alpha are going to be extremely excited. And I think especially going into the official release, when we really can get down into story, campaign progression, like boss dungeons, because look at how much content is even unlocked yet. We have arena, dungeons, bosses, campaign. This is just one game mode. And we're able to get so much out of just this one experience. I think that that's something that's pretty huge. So again, that's going to be my whole spiel with this one. Definitely make sure that you guys check out the links down below and make sure you register if you're interested in being able to get your hands in the next wave on the game so that you can try it for yourself. So that's going to be that with this one, guys. Everyone, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.